Hello and welcome to the Animation Communication podcast, your source for discussion about animation, film, fandom, and more. So please join your host, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP, and Lauren Kizich, the Abbey Roadie, for today's discussion. If you like what you hear, please remember to support by giving a like, a follow, as well as subscribing to the main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube. Spread the word and keep being a part of a great community. This episode contains some mild adult language.
Hi everyone, welcome to this fun episode of Animation Communication, so people can stop asking me how to make a YouTube channel and what to do with it, essentially. But, because we haven't really talked about that topic directly yet, so this is our attempt to talk about it, somewhat directly. So congratulations, I guess you're gonna learn stuff today, I guess. So I have Lauren, as usual, so say hi, Lauren.
Yes, hello, and very, very excited to be here today. When am I not? I like this. So.
As usual. And then, our guest today, EddAche, wants to do the news segment with us, so he's going to give his opinions about stuff that is happening in the world. So, Ed, why don't you introduce yourself and, I guess, talk about, a little bit of your background, briefly?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name's Eddie Bowley, aka EddAche. I run a YouTube channel that's kind of a mixture of animated story times and video essays, and I just talk about the stuff I like, sort of a bit of nerdy stuff, geeky stuff, cartoons mainly, all that good jam.
So are people.
Yes. Yeah, for the people that want to know. So, this is if you don't watch content, this is basically after our big Goofy collab, which has done surprisingly well. So if you haven't seen that yet, you can go learn basically some nonsense that we couldn't find a conclusion on, but it's interesting nonsense, I guess. And then you can come back.
It's a Goofy collab in both senses of the word.
But yeah, my favorite fact is Eddie volunteered to basically watch all of Goof Troop, which is a 90s show predating the Goofy movie, and it was kind of the segue into the Goofy movie. So how was that experience in general? Eddie?
It was grueling because Goof Troop is not a show that's designed to be binged, and it's just it's fun. It's a fine time waste, but then when you're trying to watch 78 episodes in a binge block session, it's very tiring very quick. There's nothing's building up to. There's no arc. There's no emotional stakes. It's just happy-go-lucky slapstick humor, and it's that's fine, but not for hours and hours
so
back
was
to
a
back.
Sitcom. It's an animated sitcom.
Yeah. Well, even at least in most sitcoms, people get older and stuff, so there is still some sense of progression. But in this, it's just a perpetual void of time loop where these characters are just trapped in this eternity forever, and nothing changes. And it's just it's fine, but it's just, as I said, it's not a show to be binged.
Yeah, from my understanding, the director of the Goofy movie was this is the same universe as the Goof Troop, but I'm just when Eddie was telling me all this stuff, a lot of the Goof Troop timeline in itself doesn't line up, which we mentioned in the video, so I'm just which one is it? You can't have your cake and eat it too,
I definitely say that the Goofy movie is out and out the best that came out of the whole Goofy and Max era. Because Max is basically gone now. He's kind of coming back, but he's been basically absent from the Disney canon, I think, for a decade now. So, but the Goofy movie, the first one, is definitely the best thing to come out of it. Because it actually has the emotional stakes. It actually has Max falling out with his father. Because part of the research was looking into how they developed the show, and they were saying then Max is this kid. He's cool. He likes skateboards. He likes pizza. He's a 90s kid. But also he's so embarrassed of his dad. And that just doesn't come through in the show. It's maybe the plot of 2 episodes in all of them. The rest of the time, he's just going along with everything just fine. And it's only until the movie do they actually drive that home that, yeah, he's deeply embarrassed about his goofy father. And it's better for it.
Yeah. And coming off, I had to watch the College movie. That was the sequel to the Goofy movie because I guess so. The Goofy movie, from my understanding, had a theatrical release, and then I guess the College movie was direct to DVD.
It didn't. I don't believe it had a theatrical release. It was straight to VHS as well because it got sidelined for the Recess movie.
Yeah, the Extremely Goofy movie. Yeah, the Extremely Goofy movie didn't get a theatrical release. The first one did. But yeah, because this Recess movie came around the end of the 90s, which is right around the time that Extremely Goofy movie came around.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's that way around then. Okay, maybe I have my facts wrong.
So, the Extremely Goofy movie is kind of like just okay, essentially. But anyway, this is not the Goofy podcast, so so we'll do our news segment. We'll talk about what's like upcoming in animation in general, and then we'll get into your YouTube dying questions about how YouTube works, because I still don't really know how it works, and so I have to ask Eddie about things, and he's just like, I don't know, and that's kind of the takeaway. So, Lauren, what are the news stories? Call me Huey Lewis.
I was gonna say, well, we actually have.
I won't do that.
Well, we actually have a few very, very, very exciting headlines. The first one, which I'm sure within the past 24 hours, at least as of recording this episode, everybody's been excited about it. Well, at least all the people that don't hate Hazbin Hotel are talking about it. Hazbin Hotel got greenlit for a full TV series by A24. Now, if you don't know about A24, it's a studio that has produced movies like Lady Bird and The Lighthouse, like all of these kind of like the indie films, kind of like, I guess you could say, almost like a Sony Pictures Classic kind of thing, where they kind of they cater more to creatives and their creative vision, except A24 has been known to be one of the best for that, and I believe this is one of their first ventures, if not their first venture, into funding animation. So I think it's really exciting that we get to have this, and I'm sure they're just about as excited too, because if you don't know about Hazbin Hotel, I mean, we've talked about it elsewhere on the podcast before, but Hazbin Hotel it has a pilot episode on YouTube, independently animated by these animators from all over the world, and it was created with characters in the story created by Vivzipop, aka Vivian Medrano, and it's kind of been her passion project, her life's blood for many years to get this story out. And so, and the pilot itself is free to watch on YouTube right now, and has over 40 million views now as of today's date, which is, well, I'm not going to say it. It's just whatever. It's the day after we had the announcement for Hazbin Hotel getting a greenlit series. But basically, it's huge news, huge for the independent animation industry, huge for creative-friendly pilots getting greenlit instead of rehashing old properties that don't need to be rehashed. Side-eyeing Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
But that is the big, huge, particularly exciting headline for me, at least, because being a huge fan of the show and of its spinoff Helluva Boss, and just the overall fact that it was an independently animated and produced project built from the ground up and funded by, just people like viewers like you. It's a huge deal. So
we did it.
And then,
I'll just go. Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna give my 2 cents essentially. So like, no one really knows this because I don't talk about it a lot. But my end all be all goal is to be a showrunner for a series that I've had in my head for like probably since I was in high school at this point. So it's gotten better, but it's still like, I don't talk about it at all. I don't share the OCs at all. Like no one knows about it unless they looked at my sketchbook. So, I've been trying to like, well, I know the YouTube thing is great, but if you want to make an animated like series, there's no way to do it independently. Like, I don't care how much money you have. Like, when you're creating and you're managing people, it can be very draining. So, the takeaway I think from this news is, if I just work even harder on YouTube, then I can like eventually get a pilot version of my thing ready, and then we can just wait for Disney to accept me and love me, essentially. But yeah, so I think that's like, and that's kind of like the back end of my goals too, because not that we've done a pilot, because pilots are hard, especially frame by frame pilots rip. But we have done shorts before, and it's kind of nice that the industry is changing, where it's giving more access to creators like from all sides of the coin, except people that it's a little flexible than this, but like especially in the 90s and the 80s, like you had to come straight out of CalArts, and you had to meet people, and that kind of way. And like I don't know if you ever checked, but CalArts is like fucking expensive, so I don't want to like that's the way to go if you can afford it, essentially. So CalArts is an animation school started by Walt Disney in California, obviously. CalArts, you get it. So but a lot of ways, like back in the day, that was the only way, like the sure ticket to get in. But now it's just people are kind of making their own way, and I think that's like really cool. I think that's part of the point too. So okay, Lauren,
I think
go
this
ahead,
is
Eddie.
like, yeah, I think this is incredible news, and it's not just like, yeah, not just the other fronts you're saying, but also for like LGBTQ plus representation as well, because it's like I believe it's queer led as well, and like for that to be like they're the protagonists of the show. It's like, wow, like a lot of all this is just unheard of before, and it's nice to see that, like, same situations with like Final Space and Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. These are also shows that like began life as YouTube pilots or shows, and then just got, because they picked up so much steam, they got developed into these full-fledged things. And it just goes to show that there is still a place for web animation, because a lot of the time it is seen as like definitely lesser because it's so creator controlled, and it's just, I guess, just putting it onto YouTube is seen as like not as illegitimate, because it's like, oh, anyone with a webcam can make a YouTube video. So there's no gravitas to just sticking on a cartoon pilot that you may have spent 2 years on developing, and put it onto YouTube. But then, like, yeah, then the proof is in the pudding, right? With those incredible numbers, and it's well deserving. Like I adored the pilot, and I'm thrilled to see it's finally sort of get wings and go places. Plus, it's a show based in hell. Like, that is such a difficult sell to any network. Like, given how like deeply Christian, like a lot of like some of the like the viewer base, especially in the US, like to sell a show that's premise is it's hell, is a hard sell, and that's yeah, that's a miracle
I think
in
what's
all of
also just
itself.
truly genius about it being in hell is because that means the characters can be as flawed as you want to make them, and that's what makes them such memorable characters. That's why I've said for so many projects why people seem to gravitate more towards the villains than they do the heroes, and it's because of their flaws. It's because they recognize that the flaws are what makes us human. And even with the demons in hell, you see that there's the flaws that make them human, and they were all at one point human. So I think that's what's really
Mm.
cool to see. And I know so many people are backlashing the whole prospect of like, oh, but it's almost like because they're gay and they're in hell, it's like it's bad to be gay. I'm like, no, it's acknowledging the fact that like even people within the community have acknowledged that. I mean, like I think somebody put it. It was funny that somebody put it as it's not like Steven Universe where you can have positive like I guess they say sugar coated LGBTQ plus representation in there. Is that you can
Right.
still have bad people be gay too. And but the thing is that the people, even in the characters, even in the show, they have certain qualities where you can show that they are redeemable characters, and that's why they're in the hotel. So it's like, come
Exactly.
on, it's like, and if you haven't watched the music video for Addict, it will change your perspective. I'm sure, and I hope it will change your perspective on Angel Dust in particular and his backstory. So I mean, I'm just saying, there's a lot there, and plus there's comics to help flesh out everything and everyone in the whole lore of the realm that they're in, and it's just, yeah. So that's what I'm just saying. People need to give it a shot if they haven't already.
There's one other aspect that I think is key to all this as well, is the fact that that it was uploaded as a YouTube pilot. that means when it was picked up, she gets full creative control. Like, there's no studio heads who are like, no, but change all this, make everyone a straight white male. Like, there's no one who can like dictate those changes now. It's like, no, she owns the whole thing, because once you share it, once you make something public, you automatically just get copyright, just like off the bat. So she owns the whole thing. She can command creative control, and this means this will be truly like her vision, what she wants out of it, and that's
especially
awesome.
with
That's
A24
incredible.
backing her for that, where I've even looked up reviews and experiences that people have had like working with A24, and they say they are one of the best studios, that is the most one of the most creative friendly studios, because they want to have stuff that is unique. They want creators to actually bring forth their vision, because that's what makes a better product and what more people want to see, instead of what people expect to see. So I think that's what's really great, especially when they've backed projects like Lady Bird and The Lighthouse, which, that's how you get unique projects and unique visions, is that you have these unique perspectives coming forth into the film medium. And now we have this TV series, which as far as I know, we don't know how it'll be released as a series yet, but there is the rumor that it most positively will be on a streaming service of sorts, like a Hulu, Netflix, maybe even possibly Amazon Prime. We're not sure yet, but they do have their roots in many streaming services, so we'll see.
It probably won't be Disney Plus.
Oh my gosh! Oh,
wouldn't that be the funniest marketing campaign though? Come to hell on Disney.
They already censored Hamilton.
They did?
There are certain points where they did have to, because they were recording it for Disney Plus or whatnot, or were recording it so that it would appeal to an all ages audience or whatever. There were certain things where they could swear a couple times, but there were other points where they had to they switched out words or whatever. And I mean, it's nothing truly invasive, but for those who do know the music and or have seen the show, and they notice it.
I mean, it's clear what they are saying, but it just like cuts to silence. It'd be like, you mother us, So.
Yeah. But yeah, I was gonna say we do have a couple other headlines here too, and I'll try to keep them short. First of all, there was the design reveal of the Animaniacs revival, which is now we know it'll be November 2020, when it will come out on Hulu, and so I'm really excited about that. And what's even more exciting is that with the designs, they look exactly as they did where the show left off 20-something years ago.
Easiest character design job ever.
Yeah, but that's also part of the charm of the Animaniacs. If you tried to change it, it's really hard to update them without, making them look as with the way they looked, I don't know. It's almost like, Mickey Mouse changed over the years, but there are some of those essential aspects of his character where if you change that, then he's no longer Mickey, right? With the Animaniacs, they're simple design, but it's effective. And if you changed any part of their design that doesn't, it's almost like you lose some of the comedy in their designs as well, because they played off a lot of that in the show as it stood before. So we'll see what they bring come November this year, and so I'm very excited.
I'd be very interested to see it actually in motion, because like the thing with Animaniacs and a lot of the shows of the 90s, like Goof Troop, it was like the work was split up between different studios, and so therefore episode to episode, sometimes the animation and the art style would sort of alter in quite noticeable ways. So I'd be curious to see how they translate that in this version. I assume it's going to be consistent, but the original show was inconsistent, so I'm going to be interested to see like when a trailer comes out and how it actually looks in motion.
Yeah, I'm really excited because Animaniacs was one of my favorite shows as a kid. So to see it coming back and to see how they will take on the 21st century, I'm very curious to see how that'll go. And then I guess, KP, do you have any thoughts on that, or should I move on to the final?
No, I think you guys already said stuff that I was going to say anyway, so.
Okay. And then I guess the final headline was the hashtag was going around earlier over this past week, was hashtag Rise of the TMNT finale. And nobody was sure if it meant the season finale or the series finale. Well, as of yesterday, as of recording this, it was the series finale. And so the show's been around for a couple years now, this incarnation of the TMNT. This one infamously got a lot of backlash because people were very attached to the not only the 2012 version, but to just previous incarnations of the Turtles. Every time a new Turtle show comes out, you're going to have the diehard people that are just going to find something wrong with it. But as I haven't watched the entire series, but I've seen a number of episodes, and what I have seen, especially in clips, is just how dynamic and unbelievably just mind-blowing, how fast-paced and action-packed the rise of the TMNT was, and in its animation. It was 2D animated too, just gorgeously done. Very anime influenced in terms of fight choreography and action perspective and poses and just like, but it was just so much fun. How could anybody at this point hate on a show? I don't care if they say, it's like, how could anybody hate on that? I don't understand. I'm like, sorry that Leo's not the leader anymore in this incarnation. Sorry that all of this changed. Sorry that they're all different species of turtles. Gosh, that was one of my favorite parts of it, is that they were all different kinds of turtles, because me being a bio geek, I like that stuff.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of the actual new series itself, but I have seen like a lot of the clips in isolation, like of the fight sequences, and it's just like, it looks awesome. Like I need to track down how I can watch it here in the UK, but yeah, I can't wait to see this. And I think on the point of like people just getting angry every time, like the Turtles is quite unique as a franchise, that like, yeah, it's not just like it gets remade like all the time. And each time it is like they do mix it up with the art style and stuff, and that's great because, like, I mean, I grew up with the first '90s show, and and I loved and adored it at the time. But at the same time, I can't deny that like the character designs were bland because, well, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're based on action figures, and so they're all like,
And
they all look
they're all the
alike,
same
sort of,
turtle, but yeah.
with different bandanas, right? So I'm glad just to see this version. It's like, well, yeah, obviously they need to mix up the character designs because so you can tell them apart. Like, say you had, say you're colorblind or something, or you need to be able to still tell who's who, not just from the different color bandana.
Oh, I never thought
Yeah.
of that. Like the poor colorblind people watching TMNT.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So, like, I mean, I even did a bit in one of my videos about character design, and I had like one of the turtles silhouetted, and it was like a who's that Pokemon, but who's this turtle? And it's like you can't tell when they're in silhouette. You just can't tell who it is unless they're holding their weapon. So,
Yeah, I think the best instance of character silhouette for TMNT has been in this incarnation. The second best would have been the 2012 version, because at least they were trying to differentiate them in their models and in their coloration and truly in their voices and personalities. Because it seems like, I mean, you could tell there were different personalities before, but what's really can sell the different personalities is how different they look from each other. So it's like and especially just with the silhouettes and even the designs and details in Rise of the TMNT, I feel like this was in terms of design one of the strongest incarnations of the show, and it's just a shame that it didn't last as long. But you know what? Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened.
Yeah,
yeah,
at least they made it. We did it, kind of.
Oh, and Zelda Williams, Robin Williams' daughter, was one of the voices in the show too. So I mean,
Yeah.
and it's funny because it's funny because her character kind of looks a little like Zelda. So I think that's pretty cool.
I miss Robin Williams. Okay, we'll move on because that will be sad.
Anyway, yeah. So that's the end of the news segment.
Okay, so Lauren, why don't you lead? Because you researched the questions, especially because you're a little bit of an outsider on this topic, so it might be interesting.
Okay, so I guess Ed, I guess where to start here is, where did you get your start in content creation, and maybe talk a little bit about your history with Newgrounds.
oh gosh.
How old are you exactly?
So Newgrounds. So I began. I began content creation. I sort of began in comics. So I'd always like self-produce weekly comics to like 10 views a week, and I was very proud of that. And the thing is, I've gone.
I was gonna be like, oh, it's 10 different accounts from your mom. She supports you that much. No, that was mean though. But continue.
No, it was probably just me like hitting refresh and be like, oh, there's another view. It's me.
We did it.
But I've always been like creatively minded, like making stuff like all the time, ever since I was a kid, ever since I could pick up a pen, basically, just drawing my own comics or stuff, and wanting to get into cartoons. I'd obsess over watching like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network and the handful of British ones. And we don't get a lot of animated shows here in this country, so it was all very American shows. And so I eventually got into making comics, and that was like my start in like stuff online. But eventually, I learned how to use Flash. I picked up Flash 8, I think, some point in like 2002, and I then used that to make my first cartoons on Newgrounds, which were based on my comics. So I take my comic characters and animate them and voice them, and through that's where I started to like meet people and grow like a sort of a community of fellow creative people along the way. And basically, a lot of the people sort of I met then, I'm still in contact with today, and we're still very good friends. And even though like I wavered on animation for a while, like I dabbled in vlogs, and it's like that was a mistake. I shouldn't talk in person in front of a camera. I should be behind an animated character. I think that's where I'm happiest. And eventually, yeah. So I got to a point where I was uploading videos on my own channel, which were like for a long time were like these like absurdist short sketches and stuff, and like the views weren't great. And I know you shouldn't balance your happiness or your self-worth based on a view count, but like I always felt that like if the time I've invested into a project doesn't match the 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 amount of people who watch and enjoy it, then I can't help but consider that to be a bit of a sucker punch sometimes. So I basically stopped and I took stock. I was like, okay, the current direction I'm going with what I'm doing isn't really working out. It's not really rewarding. So I considered like, what am I actually watching? So I'm not watching, and these sort of the same sort of stuff I was making. But what I was watching was like a lot of animated story times, like Let Me Explain Studios and JD Animations, and a lot of video essays, like Vox and Nerdwriter and that sort of thing. So I thought, well, okay, is there a way I can combine the two together and make my own thing like that? And that became the EddAche series. Like my channel was always called EddAche, but then I officially made this the EddAche series, where my animated self would just nerd out about various things I'm passionate about and tell, either appreciations for small details or a full blown behind the scenes of how this one aspect was done. And that turned out to be the thing. Like my first video in this series, which was how who shot Mr. Burns, the Simpsons two-parter, is solvable with just the first part alone. When that got like 1 million views in like a month, I think. I was like, okay, I think I struck gold. I think I've done something right. And then I did my second video, which was about the Daffy Duck Donald Duck scene in Roger Rabbit, and just like the effort it took to get that scene to happen. That got like I set myself the goal of like I just want to hit like 100K in a week, and I thought that was like that's a crazy number, but it did do that. And then I'm like, okay, fine, I'm just going to do this now. I'm not going to do any more of the absurd, sketchy stuff. I'm just going to focus on making these, since they seem to be working out for me. And so that's basically where I am today. Yeah.
Wow. Just like it's I was gonna say with some of your friends from like that Newgrounds era, like who are some of the people that you still talk to today from that era?
Well, naturally there is Thomas Ridgewell, aka Tom Scar. We now work together. He's effectively my boss, I guess, but like we're co-workers really. We collaborate on almost every creative project together. Um, there's let's see, there's One Chop who is an animator who we still work with today. Weeble from Weeble Stuff. He likewise we still like work together sometimes. So yeah, like yeah, a bunch of names. And also like I was lucky that like one of the meetups I went to had like a handful of like the American Newground people sort of come over. So I met like Tom Fulp, the founder of Newgrounds and stuff like that. So like yeah,
The
and
OG.
yeah. Um and like I've never met him again since, but it was just nice to have, I guess, in that moment in time. This was like, YouTube was only starting to like warm up, so it was definitely like I'd say like the peak, the golden moment of Newgrounds before YouTube sort of like stole all the animators away. Um, so it was nice. It was nice to be there, right there in that moment in time.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I was also gonna say, with Tomska, like so I mean, you knew each other through Newgrounds, but how did you end up like becoming like? How did you end up starting to actually like work together as you do now?
So yeah, we began meeting up at like, um, yeah, so Newground meetups at there's a
What year was this?
oh god, it was, I reckon it was like around, oh god, I can't remember years. What are where is time? Uh, I mean,
Time as a construct.
I'm gonna have to assume it was like 2006, 2007, maybe. I can't remember,
Okay.
but like, yeah, certainly like late 2000s. Um, so yeah, so we'll meet up. There was also like a webcomics convention called the Webcomics Thing, and that was like a small mini press, indie convention and stuff. That only lasted for a few years, but like every year it would be like the same group of people would turn up and would get to hang out and stuff, and that was awesome. That was I always loved those sort of like meetups and just meeting people and chatting. It was never with like a networking insidious goal in mind. It was just like, hey, I like your stuff. Hey, I like your stuff. Let's have a beer. So it was just like a nice casual like hanging out with like similar minded friends. And it was eventually Tom moved to London, and so uh, he and I and with a group of friends would like meet up for like drinks every week and just hang out and chat and stuff. But ultimately, it got to around when our joint friend Ed Gould, aka Ed's World, passed away in 2012. Um, that what that eventually led to was, so Tom took up the mantle of running the channel, um, as sort of like with the blessing of Ed's family, and found himself struggling because I think obviously a mixture of grief, of that sort of a lot of like mental health issues starting to really reach a boiling point and stuff. He was basically struggling to manage this entirely on his own. So um, he reached out to his friends and be like, if anyone's interested in like helping out, let me know. And uh, I did. And it began with like helping Tom out with like his own sketches. Like there was a few ideas that weren't like clicking for him, so we just like bounce it off one another, and we came up with a few ideas, which were like some of our earliest sketches. But then eventually it led to Ed's World, and he would say to me that he had like a sort of script. It was like the first scene and then a list of gags, but that's all he had. He couldn't get the characters to talk to each other. He kind of knew what had to happen, but the getting there he couldn't figure out. And so he gave me the script file, and then a day later I handed him a completed script. And it was kind of from that point onwards that we began collaborating regularly. And then eventually around 2015, I left my office job to pursue a career in creativity, and sort of worked with Tom full time.
You've been adopted.
Yeah. By someone 8 years younger than me.
He's a time lord.
So we have a clue.
Oh Lord. Yeah, that sounds like I wasn't. Me and Lauren were probably like in high school at that time, so I was like, not to make you sound old, but that. So I just remember, like, this was way before I was a content creator. Like, I didn't start making content until like I was in college, but I do remember like the EddAche news and how I don't think I could really see the direct effect it was having, but it was just like I could tell he was like a really cool guy in general by just how upset people were about it. Like, obviously when someone dies you're upset anyway, but like there's kind of more of a loss, like, because you don't really have that warmth anymore that you had in like him as a person.
I
So
think
I
there's
don't know,
an element of like
go
he
ahead.
puts so much of himself into his animations, because ultimately his animations were him and his friends. Like, it wasn't like well established thought out characters. It was just basically, it was him, it was his friend Tom, it was his friend Matt, and he would just silly adventures they've gone together. But it was really just him and his friends having fun, and I think that resonated with a lot of people. So to lose him wasn't just like losing a man; it was losing the soul of his show. Like, and whilst Tom and I continued the show for 4 years after he died away, after he passed away, you know we were still like, there's only so much we could really do that could be felt to be true to his vision, because like the fact was, like, uh, without him there was only, I can't think of the words to say. Without him there was only so much we could do with the show. We were conscious to not just like repeat jokes, fan favorite jokes or anything like that. We wanted to like, um I guess in a manner, one of the earliest decisions we made was to just try and distance the relationship between the character and the person it's based on a bit, because like, whilst we wanted to keep it like true to the legacy, um, we had to treat them more like characters now, because we didn't have Ed anymore. So we sort of like moved Ed, because also the problem I had looking at the show objectively was the fact that like you could take lines from one character and swap it with another character, and it would probably just be the same. Like, there wasn't a lot um that made them stand out, as identifiable characters. So we had to like adjust them a bit. So like with Ed, we made him more of this like optimistic team leader that tries but doesn't always succeed, and we felt that made him like a very endearing character, uh and that worked out, because like thinking of him more like that way helped us when it came to the scripting part. So we knew like, we have to reference Cola here or there because that was Ed's thing, but like ultimately, like, how the characters speak to one another, we had to like flanderize them in a way, because like, we didn't have Ed to do that bit for us. So and
Can
like,
you can you define Can you define Flanderizing for people who might not know that
Oh,
term?
sure. Flanderizing is it's named after Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, and it's a case of where when a character gets sort of pushed further and further into their archetype, that they almost become a parody of themselves. So Ned Flanders, for example, he was Christian, but like it wasn't like his defining character trait. It was just an aspect of him. But now, as the seasons have worn on, he's become like a full blown kooky Christian. And so Flanderized was a term born out of that. Um, I should stress in regards to like writing the scripts for Eddsworld, like Tom was present for like a lot of the history of Eddsworld. Like he wrote his own dialogue a lot of the time. There were episodes that he either co-wrote or out and out wrote by himself, like Space Face, was ultimately Ed's final episode. He had written that entirely himself with Ed's sign off. So we still had Tom around to be that kind of guiding voice. He knew, he knew in his heart what felt right. It was still just figuring out the path along the way. So
I remember being in high school and I remember how many people watched the show and how many people talked about it, and then of course in the DeviantArt era, how many people made Eddsworld art, and so when that news broke in 2012, I remember just how just the internet, I felt like it kind of froze at that. So it was, but it's so inspiring to know that even after all of that, you guys still pushed on as best as you could, and you shaped it into something that could still live on and still be an honor to Ed, in not having to change too much of it, drastically to keep it going.
yeah. I mean the episode that I wrote in a day, whilst it still got like tweaked and refined, but that became the most watched episode of Eddsworld ever. And that's a very bittersweet feeling, because it's like, while I'm incredibly proud of that accomplishment, I think it has like, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it has like 30 million plus. That might be underestimating it. I can't remember. I know it's an obscene number. Um, but whilst that's great, it was never our goal to like outdo Ed. Like, no, like no, absolutely not. Like, I mean, the only the solace I can take in that is that if people discover the show through that episode, and then off the back of that dig and find the history, and find Ed and his work, then I would call that job done.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, as long as it was done in like because in a way it's to pay loving tribute to him, and so it's to keep that legacy alive, and so I think that's amazing. So that's how I see it. It's not taking away from him; it's adding to what he started and helping other people see it. So if they haven't already, so I think that's no, I think that's fantastic. And actually, to root into your writing process, what can you share with us about your writing process and content development? Like, how do you get ideas for your videos, especially for the YouTube format? How do you figure that out, especially with algorithms these days?
Yes. So the accursed algorithm. It's okay. It's definitely tricky, because it's like you got to think about what you want to make, and what are like-minded or similar people doing. Like when I started doing video essays, the first thing I did was like look at as many other different video essays as I could, and sorry, animated story times. I mean, because like I knew I wanted to go for that aesthetic, but I didn't want to like go succumb to any of the pitfalls that other people may have done. And like, while I don't agree with them, seeing what the criticisms were for these sort of shows. Um, so like, for example, there was ones where you have like sort of like KP's one, where you have the character who is essentially a series of poses, um, and uh, So I thought, well, I don't want to have my character to be static. I would rather have them moving. But at the same time, I can't like on any semi-frequency basis have a character that's fully animated for like 10 minutes at a time. Like that's insane. For me to do on my own. But then like I only want to be animated. But then I looked at ones that were animated, and I saw a lot of the time they were like they maybe had like a few loops of animation where the character would like shift from one pose to another or something like that. And even then, it's like that looks bad. That looks lazy if you just have the same animation that you have on a loop. So I knew that I needed a diversity of movement in what my character does. Um, and so from that, I spent like half a year just designing my character to have like multiple different expressions, multiple different gestures. Like even his hair can flop, his jawline moves when he speaks. But like ultimately, now that I've done that prep work, when I go into making the video, I still do the same seemingly, quote unquote, lazy approach, which is like I just like this scene, the character is now shocked, so I will just go through my shocked assets and pick that one, and then there we go. So from an outsider, it looks fully animated, but for me, because I've already done the prep work, it's just as easy. I'm just plucking like, oh, I want this expression now, and then with each new episode, I might only need to add like 3 or 4 new expressions or new illustrations to the design. um, so there is still new stuff being added onto it, but it's a model that's building and building over time. But at the same time, it's still not that same agonizing, fully animated character. It's the same model, the same batch of expressions. Even the lip sync itself is like it's just a looping mouth cycle for most part. It's only if I ever like hold on to a certain word or a certain syllable would I then like have the mouth shape be specific and hold or anything. Um, it's all these like little tiny tricks that I've just learned over like a decade of animating that uh, allowed me to make this like fully modeled character. And so a lot of that just came out of just researching, just simply like, what do other people do? What do I like about it? What I dislike about it? And what do I want to do? How do I want to bring my voice uh, to the scene? Um, if you're going to go into it with like something like Ed's World or Has Been or something like that, like the scene on YouTube for original animation is not great. I mean, I've said before that YouTube is the place where animation goes to die because it because it's so like governed by like the algorithm, what people how recommendations work and what people want to see. Because it's like for a lot of people, um, sometimes the selling point has to be like the IP it's based on. If it's based on something established, so like it's a Mario parody or something like that, you know. Um, if you want to make something that's truly original, then sometimes the feature that needs to stick out is it's really well animated. You know, like the thumbnail, the art design looks really cool or something like that. But then it's the pitfall of like, well, to do something that looks that good is going to take a long time or it takes a lot of money. It's like there's so many like different different degrees of like complexity of this sort of thing. So that's why the style of animation that's really boomed has been apart from has been animated story times, because they fill that void of like they tick the box of YouTube's algorithm of like being happier with a 10-minute plus video uh without killing the animator in the process. um so the minimalist style of like a character on key poses, uh or sometimes they might be missing a mouth or missing eyes or missing some other feature that just all these little corner cuts um, can still fulfill the quota of videos, which ticks YouTube's box, um, but still makes it a manageable amount of work for the animator. And that's why that sort of thing has boomed. And I know because I am in the animation community, I also am aware that like it has its detractors who like hate sort of thing. But it's like I find it so weird that people would like hate on animated story times or anything, because it's like I don't know, it's like they're like, we want more animation on YouTube. No, no, not that one. It's like, no, they're doing the thing. They're doing the thing you want. No, I don't, no, not that. I want it to be more original stuff. Well, okay, here's has been. No, I don't want that either. So it's super tricky. So I guess yeah, the real question is like, first of all, in terms of like how to approach making stuff for YouTube, it's like, first of all, figure out what you actually want to watch. What is it you want to make, and then go out there and see what other people have done and where people have succeeded, where people have failed, and use those lessons to sort of come up with your own answer. Maybe there is a way to make an original animated show um, that is manageable in animation terms. Um, you know, but that's a facet to be explored. There's definitely animators out there who have like done superb original work outside of like has been like there's Pymations, who does a lot of like he does parody stuff, but he also makes original animations too. And maybe that's a key facet of it. Do some parodies, and then like once you've hooked people in, then you put out your original stuff as well. Um, there's a few approaches, so I can only just say like see what other people have done, how it's worked for them, and then do one better.
Yeah, it's a good way to go about it too, because there's so many content creators, like myself included, that kind of come from a niche background, like talking from something very specific. And when they want to they want to move on to a grander scope thing, or even like worse, original content, it can be daunting because there's always the fear that you're going to isolate people that only want you for that one thing. Too. But I think, forcing yourself, I mean, this is kind of like an internet thing, but like forcing yourself to do something just because it's popular is never like also a good idea too. Like, so finding the middle ground I think is important. Like, for example, for me, like, we're moving on to like bigger, video essay type things. Like, we're in pre-production for our first original like short, you know, but at the same time, it's like I'll talk about ponies like if I feel like it. Like, that's not off the table, but I can't, keep on talking about this thing that I'm not really passionate or about because,
The
I
thing
don't know,
with
I'm rambling. Go
YouTube,
ahead.
the thing with YouTube that's so unique, I think, to like nearly any other medium is people can read sincerity. They can tell when you're phoning it in. Um, it's so weird. I guess because there's a different sense of intimacy when it comes to a YouTube video, because um it doesn't feel like it's not the same thing with a TV show or a movie. You don't seem they seem there's a degree of separation there, but when it's a YouTube video, it's like they are talking to you. And so therefore, if they're lying to you, if they're like trying to subvertly push a sponsor plug without declaring that they've been sponsored by it or whatever, people be like, hang on, no, you're trying to sell me something. Or likewise, if they are making videos for the sake of making videos, people will read through and be like, I am bored. I don't, they may not necessarily put their finger on it, but they'll still read it and definitely get the vibe of like, you're not into it. You're not as into the subject as you sound like you are. Um, and so
because it
if you,
becomes routine for so many people, especially if they're cranking out videos on like virtually a daily basis. So it's
yeah,
like, yeah.
I do
Yeah,
not envy those people.
you've got to stick to what you're passionate about. And I think if you can convey, like, doesn't matter how niche it is, if you are passionate in thing and you can convey that into a video, people can still read that and like be like, yeah, all right, I get this. Like, even if it's like, I don't know, stamp collecting, they'll video about stamp collecting and be like, I'm on board with this, It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to get into it myself, but like, the people passion carries, you know, and people can tell when you're being sincere and speaking your truth, and that passion can carry a video regardless of what it's about.
I was gonna say, because I mean, you did bring up like some of the challenges of like working against the algorithm and stuff, but and some of the stuff you create. What are some of the major challenges you've had to face as a content creator, especially as you know, I guess you can say as like YouTube constantly changes and updates the algorithm, but also as YouTube audiences change. What are some of the biggest challenges you have faced when it
Yes,
comes
so
to making new videos?
the YouTube algorithm is a mysterious entity because they don't tell you what they've done. They'll do some like under the hood changes and you won't find out. Like, it's a constant like kind of guessing game. Like, I don't know how the trending tab works. I don't understand this thing. Is it moderated? Is it automated? They don't tell us. So I have no idea. Um, why is there always like 8 KSI related videos and then the other two are boxing? Like, who is filling up this page? I don't get it. But uh, what I do understand of it is it prefers regular regular, but it doesn't have to mean weekly. Although it might like weekly, I don't know. But it prefers regularity. It prefers watch time. So therefore, like 10 minutes is the kind of like golden number. It used to be free. That's how things have changed. It used to be 3 minutes. 3 minutes was the perfect video. Um, but now people with YouTube, they treat it almost like a lot of other streaming services, and it's not so much like an idle time waste. I think TikTok may have picked up that now. It's now like I mean, for me, it's certainly, and I feel like a lot of people share this. For me, it's like a sit down thing. Like, I have a meal, I might have my lunch, and I'll watch a 10-15 minute YouTube video with it. Um, People treat it like another streaming service. Um, in terms of like the kind of challenges and having to adapt, um, part of it is like it is a kind of game of like clickbait, I guess. And that sucks because it makes it sound so soulless. The fact that you're playing this game of like, oh, what's going to be the most appealing to audiences? What's going to really get them clicking this thing? But like, it's an unfortunate like the only way to survive, really. Like for example, for we Tom and I had a sketch called the sketch had a pug who turned out to be this like super cool sniper. Um, and It was going to be called Sergeant Pugsley because that's the name of the character. But then if people are like, "Oh, what was that video? It had a pug. He was a sniper. What was it called?" They won't be able to find it. So we called it Sniper Pug. It's the most literal title you could give it. Um, but it's what people will search for, and that works. So sometimes just giving it a very literal title, like I pranked my mom, lol. Like it tells people exactly what to expect, and um, that's now become such another facet. Like um, I guess because there's so much stuff on YouTube clamoring for people's attention that you can't just like push out something that's just good and expect it to sort of like stand on its own legs because it's up against so much other stuff. So you have to find a way to like make it appealing to people to come in. So like giving it that kind of alluring title, like so like the Goofy video, we called it like, what happened to Goofy's wife? And it's like, that's to make it sound like alluring and like, ooh, that is a question that has been on my mind. Or it might even be the literal question that somebody would type into YouTube. Um, uh, then there's the thumbnail, and it'd be great to give these thumbnails like a nice, cool, creative, like something that just like looks nice, but sometimes it does have to be the most garish, most standouty thing of like a character going whoa next to
Yeah.
a familiar IP, Um, it's the thumbnail I have found in recent years seems to be doing like 90% of the legwork. Like the title is like so much, like the title does say something of like what this video is about, but the thumbnail is the real selling point. And that is such a delicate art of like trying to figure out what the right thumbnail is. And it's absurd. It's like, I just want to make a good fucking video, I just want to make something that's good and entertaining. Yeah, but at the same time, you got to be like, oh, what the fuck is the thumb gonna look like? It's such like that shouldn't be such a pressing question, but it is because it's like it doesn't matter how good your video is, you got to get people through that front door, and that front door is the thumbnail and the title. And well, I mean, there's four things people look at when they look at a thumbnail. It's the thumbnail itself, the title, the watch time, no, the run time, sorry, and the view count. So sometimes um, when I've had a video that gets over 1 million views, that in turn gets another wind of views because people are like, this got 1 million views. I wonder what this is about. That becomes a selling point in or of itself. Um, and so you got to play with these things. So if the runtime is like, if people can see that it's only like 10 seconds long, then like I guess they might just sod it, just watch it there and then. If they can see it's like 2 to 3 minutes long, they might be like, well, I guess I'll watch that in a bit. And I've got a bit of downtime. That might be one for on the toilet or something. But then when it's like a 10-minute video, that's like, okay, I'm getting my lunch out for this. So people react to runtime differently. Um, and so it's like these are the elements. As I said, it's getting people through that door. These are the elements that like people are presented with when they're scrolling through on their phone or on whatever device they're using. Um, so therefore, you've got to use those to sell your video to them. The runtime is what it is, and you can't control the view count, but you can control the title and the thumbnail. So you got to like go ham on those and be like, well, what 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 can I sell these people on this? What's the most alluring title? What's the most easy to understand thumbnail? You can't make it too busy. Um, the simpler the better, really. But still in a very eye-catching, poppy way. Um, and then once you've got all those down and they're through the front door, that's when your content can sell them. And yeah, that's the next step challenge. Um, yeah, it sucks. It's soulless. It's soul destroying. Like as I said, I wish I could just make fun videos and that be it. But like, yeah, there's a game and you gotta play it.
You get nothing if you wait for it.
Uh, I was also gonna say to follow up on that, because when you get to make the content that you want, and I know basing off of what people want, but most importantly on what you want to do. Do you have any ideas for projects you haven't done yet that you would like to do? Like, do you have anything that you're thinking down the line? I haven't done a video on this, or maybe I have done, but I done one and I haven't gone deep enough into it. What would be anything like that that you might have?
That's what
Um,
she said.
I, ooh, I So there's a video I want to approach about spoof movies. So like
Mm,
growing up, I loved and adored pretty much anything by the Zucker brothers or the Abrahams. So
yes.
there's like Airplane, Naked Gun, or the Police Squad series.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
there is Hot Shots and Like, so many really, really just phenomenally great spoof movies. Um, and then there was like the age of like the scary movie, which seemingly began the resurgence of the genre, but then it got degraded into like epic movie and not another date movie, and it just turned into like these kind of like gross out, raunchy, like just really, really awful movies. And then like there's a whole wave like which is still going on now, of like spoof movies which are like they just take the literal property like Game of Thrones or Walking Dead, and then they'll just do like a parody, except one character is a predatory gay character, the next character is a weed surfer dude type nerd, and then you've got like it's just so tired and bad, and it like to me it misses some of the fundamental points of what makes a spoof movie so good. And I would love to do a topic that is just dedicated to like I guess what defines a spoof movie, and like what happened, because I mean I guess in a manner spoof movie does still exist. It's like um like YouTube parodies are essentially spoofies, spoofs. When like, um, if you do a Mario parody, that's a Mario spoof, really. Um, but yeah, I can't. Yeah, there's just like a prestige to something like Airplane that I'm yet to see matched today. The nearest I've seen has been something like Lego Movie, which does a lot of subverting of expectations. Um, there's Kung Pao, which is like, yeah, it's kind of bad in places, but like I hold it near and dear to my heart because it's bad, but like I like it. It's a fun bad, you know. there's like there's parts that there's parts I still quote with friends, and we still like we can be in tears laughing over it. Like it's just one of those things that sort of sticks with you. Um, it does still sort of exist, but it's like it's more like the the real subverting of expectations. What it's now become has just become this like factory line of pop culture references after pop culture references, and it's like that's not what spoofs are. You're just like you're just doing the thing, and here's another thing, and that's the film. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel
but
like, yeah, when you brought up epic movie, I remember like when I was like 13 or something when that came out in theaters, and I remember seeing it, and as a 13-year-old, I think cuz everything was so timely that I laughed at it. But watching it years later, you look back at it and you go, "God, this is abysmal.
oh yeah,
Why did I stomach I mean, it's just so horribly written, lazily put together, and even the jokes, even the parodies they were trying to make were some of the movies hadn't even come out yet. They were basing it off of these moments in movies that either maybe just had barely come out or about to come out by the time they were making this movie. So it was like they were basing off of movie posters at that point. so it was and so when the jokes didn't really land, and it was just very crude and dirty, way dirtier than any of those parody movies had a right to be, and it was just bad. And like at least with Date Movie, there are a lot of moments where I still laugh at it because it's crude humor, but I still laugh at the dumb jokes where I'm like, it's not even so much dumb as it seems like a joke that truly the Zucker brothers would put in because one of them was still working on the movie. I think it was David Zucker that was working on the movies at that point. And they when there's the bachelorette part or a bachelor part where after he's eliminated all the bachelorettes and he's down to the one who's the protagonist, right? And you have Chris there going like, you guys just want a dinner for two at a restaurant, and they get all excited, and you realize that the restaurant they're going to is literally called a restaurant. I'm like, that is something straight out of The Naked Gun with
yeah.
the hospital, the police station. Like, it was like, I'm like, that's the kind of stuff. I'm like, you know what? That's great. It's a great visual gag, and the whole aspect was they did parody right there, and they even did some of the timely parodies right there, because they even did made jabs at the Carl's Jr. ads at the time, which I don't know how old some of you are here, but I hope some of you are old enough to remember when Carl's Jr. was known for the sexy girl commercials where they had him like eating a burger while washing a car and being scantily clad and just doused in soapy water. Like it was, and they knew it was like they know what they're doing with these ads. They know it. They shouldn't be doing it, but they're doing it anyway, and they knew it would sell stuff, and it did. So, so it was like they totally made jabs at that in the movie too. So like that was a point where I feel like epic movie died and killed that what the momentum that it did have, because date movie was still good. And that's my mini rant on between 2004 and 2006 or whatever.
If you're new here, this is a long episode. Go ahead.
I think you nailed on the head. Yeah, you were 13 at the time, so you definitely would have found that funny at the time, and that's okay. Like that doesn't delegitimize, that moment for you. But I guess the problem I have is that it's flash in the pan. It is like this is funny now. Like I remember seeing I think I can't remember if it was Scary Movie 1 or 2, which I saw them in the cinema. And like I think it has the whole bit where they're doing the "What's up" Budweiser ad. And I'm like, that's funny because I know that reference. But if I watched that today, or if anyone watched that today, they'd be like, "What the fuck is this?" So it ages super super badly. But like Airplane and Life of Brian, Monty Python, like these, like there are moments in those that have definitely aged badly. But it's more like largely like holds up. It's still funny because it still subverts it subverts expectations. It has like witty background gags and sign gags and stuff like that. Like it has all that stuff which is just funny regardless of what decade we're in.
And it parodied classic movies, like movies that people had already known for a long time at that point, well established in cinema. And so to parody those moments, that is what I'm like. They picked the right things to poke fun of, and they put them in there instead of something that was as of the year 1979 or whatever, because they released the movie in 80, but they filmed it in 79. So I mean, it was taking out something that was super. Not every joke was super relevant to 1979 specifically. So that was what was great too, is they parodied all those other movies that had already been established and had been liked for a long time. So and then even for a few years, like nothing is truly more 70s than Saturday Night Fever. But to have moments like that, like even though it was a product at the time, nowadays it's because Saturday Night Fever, it's kind of like one of those, like some people may say it's not a great movie, but it's still kind of like a cult classic. Like people still like it and remember it to this day. So it's like not a perfect film, but people like it, and so it's they pick them wisely, I guess you could say. But
Yeah, I think like the way like I think like Airplane and Naked Gun approach things was like they didn't they weren't going for like a straight up like parody. Like I haven't seen Zero Hour, which is what Airplane is based off. Like it's like to the point where the makers of Airplane like bought the rights of Zero Hour, essentially like how you would treat a remake, except they weren't remaking it, they were spoofing it. Um, but like I haven't seen that, but I know plane disasters in general. Like I can't tell you any number. I can't tell you any plane disaster movies I've actually seen, but like I know the tropes, and like even then, like a lot of the gags aren't based off like plane disaster movies. It's stuff like surely you can't be serious. I am, and don't call me Shirley. Like that's just wordplay, and that works
exactly.
fine. Naked Gun, it's based off like the gumshoe private detective stuff. Like again, I can't name Columbo. I guess like there's a handful of like detective shows maybe, but like it's not based off any one specific thing. It's just taking the tropes of the whole genre, and because it's not specifically any one thing, it's a broad stroke. that I think works in its favor because that means it doesn't age as much because it's based on a larger thing. So when you get like Scary Movie, the first one, which is I think it does try to be quite broad, but it is a lot more specifically based on Scream. Then it kind of depends on you knowing what Scream is to then get this film, and that's where I think those sort of films began to falter because it's like once you start like depending on other things to exist when you're depending on an audience to come in with like that predetermined text in their head to then understand this film, then like that only leads to a film aging badly, I would say. So basically that's a topic I want to make for a video, but I haven't done it yet because it would require me to watch a lot of spoof movies, which I know I am going to want to die by the end of it.
But that is a good topic for sure because I mean, and it's one of those things where I'm like, shoot, I would go on for hours and hours on that kind of stuff because yeah, like to your point, I love the Zucker Brothers movies and I love parody in general and I love spoofs. So it's just like and yeah,
Like
there is
I
and there
like
is an art form to
I
it.
I like Rat Race. Do you ever see Rat Race? That was done by one of the
Yeah,
Zuckers. Like
yeah.
it's like that was fine. It was a fun film. I enjoyed it. It's not. I mean, it ends with Smash Mouth, but like apart from that, it's fine.
It's fine. This is fine. Everything's fine.
I had a good time with it. I had a good time.
I'm
And
just getting flashbacks to like that meme I think that Ed shared on Twitter where it
mhm.
was like they took All Star and they just take the first bit of it, the Year Shot Coming, and then they just repeat that verse for the whole song.
But pitch corrected as well, so it sounds
Yeah.
seamless throughout. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Um, I think Lauren is doing a thing. Um, but yeah, okay. So I'll take over then. For a sec, So we've talked a lot about like how the algorithm works and how everyone hates it and how like it is like a mythical beast and we will never understand it. So I was gonna say like what advice do you have for people that maybe want to do YouTube and they don't know where to go or how to start? Basically, either technique wise and also like on a technology wise basis too, like what kind of mic setup they would need, stuff like that.
Um, I think people are more sensitive to sound than they are to sight. I think there's a lot you
Yeah.
can cover up with visuals of like, um, yeah, you could make a video entirely out of stock images, and it would work just fine. But it has to sound good. So I say if anything, focus on getting a decent microphone. Like I think like an entry level thing could be like this. You can get like a £50 condenser USB microphone. But then like I mean the setup I have, I bought for like uh £400, but it has lasted me I think like a decade. Like it stood the test because like it's like my going in was like if I just spend the money now, then it will last, and it has. Um, so I think if you're gonna do whatever you do, if you're gonna do anything that involves you speaking, then focus on getting a good microphone first and foremost, and then everything else you can sort of like build up and develop over time. In terms of like starting YouTube, you got to you got to understand that it's not going to happen overnight. I know it's like it's somewhere it's listed that like YouTuber is like or content creator. I guess like TikTok is now under that brand too, but like some kind of content creator is like the number one career goal for people. Um, but you can't like expect it just to happen. Um, as I said, for one, there's a game to be played, and you got to play by the rules. But like, there's almost a lot going against you just starting out, and it just takes like a lot of like time and investment. So you got to care about what you're doing. You got to do it because you love doing it. Um, and like, yes, over time, people will recognize that and they will reward you for it. They'll come back, they'll subscribe. Not that subscriptions particularly mean anything nowadays, because it's all just homepage random recommendations. But still, you will start getting recognition. And as long as like you care about what you're doing and you're making it to the best of your ability, um, like there's still technical limitations. Like I think most computers come with like a free editing software like Windows Movie Maker, and it's rough, but like it can get the job done. But if you just do as best as you possibly can, then I think people would recognize that, and it's not something that you'll necessarily look back on and go, oh God, like I definitely do. I definitely look back at some of my older stuff and be like, oh God, that's bad. But I also know that it's because I guess maybe in that moment in time, I was just farting out a video because I wanted a video to come out that week. I knew in my heart that it's not as good as I could have made that been. So, yeah. So care about what you're doing. As I said before, look what others are doing. If you're doing something in a similar field, see what they're doing, how they're doing it, and like don't copy, but like take inspiration and do it your own way. Um, and then like yeah, then start potentially reaching out for like collabs. Like you might start as a tiny channel, but then when you build up a catalog of good videos, then would be the time to like collaborate with other people. And like I think to an extent, keep your expectations in check. Don't think that like PewDiePie is going to collab with you based off your first video, but like if there's another channel, like your friend or whatever, who has 100 subs, collaborate with them, and then collaborate with the next channel, and like keep like jumping up. And basically, it's just tenacity. You just got to keep at it. And it sucks because it's like it's a long grind sometimes, and it may never pay off. But I guess that's why I just fall back to just like you got to care about it. You got to be passionate about it because yeah, that will even if you even if you even you never make it big, you never get that diamond plaque. Um, if you can still look back at what you've done and look back on it with pride, then you know that's a worthy accomplishment in and of itself.
I'll just touch on the collab bit a little bit. So something that I've been having to deal with personally, especially because as I mentioned earlier, we're not doing conventions. So because of the niche market that I've noticed, a lot of people like they need to also be reintroduced to the brand too. So that's why I'm just like, I guess if you want to start doing something very niche like doll collecting reviews or I don't know, like things people are doing, whatever. Like you can look it up, I guess, if you want to. Um, but always have a plan to kind of branch out from that too, because I think that's one of the things I regret is I think I stuck with the pony stuff and exclusively the pony stuff for too long. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I was stagnant for a long time, and I think if I was willing to talk about more of the videos we're making now essentially and just kind of having broader topics, we'd still have the pony stuff for people that like that, but for people who aren't into that community, then it's just like, oh, well, there's something else for me too. So, a lot of times when lately that I appear on collab, especially like I think we even got some of this on Twitter. People are like, oh, I forgot she existed until now. And then same thing at conventions where people recognize the logo and stuff. They're just like, oh, I used to watch all your stuff, but now I hate you because ponies are gross or something like that. So like, so it's kind of shooting in the breeze and, you don't really know who's gonna, take a chance on you, I guess, Mamma Mia style. But yeah, I've been very surprised because I feel like Ed specifically, is kind of like the fly in the room of like some very important, not influential, I guess, people, but he's very like chill about it. He's just like, it is what it is, but it's fine kind of thing, which I think is refreshing because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I edit for this person and we have this many subscribers and I feel validation only because of the subscriber number. And it's annoying and I hate it and I don't like it. So, and I think from the get-go, specifically with that, it's been very like, what's like, let's break down what would be an interesting topic. Like, what do you think people would like versus, let's just do a thing because why not, essentially, which is a lot of sometimes the response as well. So,
The way I approach it is like sometimes if you got something you want to talk about, but then just like
mhm,
angle it in such a way that will still be enticing, but you still trick them once they're in. So like for example, like
right.
say I'm just going to pluck something completely out the air from absolutely nowhere. Say you wanted to do a video about Treasure Planet. You may
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
you may not necessarily want to go in with like here's a video that's about Treasure Planet, because people are like, um, unless they know specifically, unless they're also passionately about Treasure Planet, then may not necessarily care. But if it's like how Treasure Planet changed my life, or here's 5 things you never noticed about Treasure Planet, or the secret Disney doesn't want you to know. Don't even mention Treasure
Right.
Planet. Like, well, something like that. There's you can still once they're in, you can still then steer them to what you want to talk about. Like, I mean, I did a video
Mhm,
on I wanted to do a video that I get to talk about She-Ra, but I made it about character design. So I get to talk about how much I like She-Ra, but I get to angle people in with like I'm talking about how you do character design because they took a show that was based on dolls, so therefore all the characters
mhm.
looked alike, and then they got to branch off and make completely original designs out of everyone. So, um, yeah, so I guess it's like if you have something you want to talk about, but you want to play the algorithm game, then like yeah, you just need to like figure an angle on it that would become enticing to you know regular Joe or regular Jane, but
Mhm.
but yeah, once they're in, then you can then steer it to the stuff that you're particularly passionate about.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's like an interesting take. And then, like something I'm learning is like Ed was just like, where are you? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, where's your personality? And I'm just like, I don't know, like, cause a lot of people, specifically with video essays, the English learning that we have is take yourself out of the narrative. But I think you also have to put yourself in because YouTube is a different beast, and people will, you know, that's kind of an endearing factor versus like if you're writing a critical essay, people don't want to care about like know about your cat or whatever, or like whatever thing you're trying to do to personalize the specific topic. So,
I think that in the air that's definitely a case of like I have found, at least in my experience, that people don't like being lectured. Like, I mean, I guess if
mhm,
if they're specifically seeking out like how do I write a script, then, there's definitely like more academic videos on that sort of subject. But if it's like how Treasure Planet inspired me to write this script, then like um yeah, then if you could put more of yourself in the video, you could still get across the points you want to make, but it then it skews it to be more of a personal approach, and then that's where like that sort of passion that I said before can shine through, because ultimately what you want people to come back for is you, not your topic. So like you're saying about your pony stuff, like you want people to come back to your videos because they like you and they like what you're talking about, they like how informed you are, and they like to learn something from your and the well presented videos. But if they only know you for pony stuff, then they only want pony stuff. So
mhm,
if you put more of yourself and your personality into the videos, then people will become attached to you, and therefore they come back for you because they're like, I like this person. I like the way I like their sense of humor. I like the way they present stuff. So I'm going to keep coming back to them, regardless of what they talk about. They could talk about
mhm.
topics a TV show or a movie I've never seen, but because it's this person telling me about it, then I'm all in.
Read the phone book.
Yeah, maybe don't. Save that for like a
I
charity
mean,
live stream or something.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think
I
that's.
guess fine. Go ahead, Lauren.
Oh no, I was gonna say I'm like that's some like I mean that's solid advice to keep in mind always. is like no matter what you do, even if you whether you go into content creation or not, it's that as long as you yourself are like, as long as you can sell your personality kind of thing, not so much sell as it is convey it in what you do. I mean, that's what people should be wanting to gravitate towards. Again, like it's just like topics will change, subjects will change. You're what people want to come back for. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all that can just be is just like every now and again crack a joke or tell something from a personal perspective of like when I saw this movie for the first time and any anecdotes you have relating to it. And that's if you just pepper those throughout the video, then people learn more about you. And
Right. When I was a youth,
yeah, exactly.
Okay. I think we're good. I think that was a very good informative time. I guess my last question is Ed, when are we gonna do that cat dog video?
Oh, good God, no. that
Like
that's not that's not a rabbit hole I want to go down.
I know, I've just been trolling in the comments because people are like, so actually, how does cat dog poop? And I'm just like, very carefully.
Yeah, I mean, people have been saying for me to legitimately make that video, and it's like, no. I mean, I wouldn't be against making such a daft video, but the fact is like, I don't. I watched Cat Dog, but I can't say I care for it especially, and I've always been conscious of any video I make, I need to care about, because that's that whole sincerity thing. And also, if I'm going to dedicate a month of my life to making a video based on a topic, I better care about it. So no, I don't see me ever actually looking into how cat dog poops.
We have Google for a reason, I guess.
Yes, I'm sure somebody else has approached this topic before.
Fair enough. Okay, so Eddie, where can people find you if they want to follow you in on the internet? I guess.
I have a YouTube channel. It is the YouTube URL followed by EddAche, EDDACHE. I am also on Twitter, which is EddAche as well, except there's an underscore because somebody else got the name before me. There we go.
Oh, they got it. Okay, so if you're new, we'll do the ending thingies. If you're new to the podcast, make sure you subscribe to the main channel because that's good. We do videos, we do podcast episodes every Wednesday, and usually the actual content is every other week. So if you really want your KP fix, I guess you can come here where there's not as much effort. I mean, in the actual post-production process. That's what I mean. Lauren, do you have anything else you want to go out on?
No, other than our audio for the podcast is released on all streaming services like SoundCloud and all those other kinds of things. We have a few avenues we do that on. iTunes, all that good stuff.
It's on YouTube and anywhere else you can get.
In the morning, in the
podcasts.
mornings, in the AMs on Wednesdays is when we usually try to have the audio up, and then by evening we usually try to have the visualizer YouTube version up, so that way you have both.
You can choose your poison, I guess, if you want to do that. So yeah, thanks for listening. If you're new, this is our 25th episode. Yay!
Woo!
We got quarter of 100. We got a quarter. So we got plenty of shit. So if you want to backtrack and you're like, who is a KP? That's a stupid name. Then
we got 24 other episodes you can go through, guys.
Yeah, mostly about animation topics, but we try to keep them funny too if you don't care about that. So yeah. All right.
Well, thank you, Ed, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Glad we were able to. Yeah, I'm so glad we were able to have this schedule work out and have
finally. Yeah. For those who don't know, this is our third attempt trying to record this specific episode, so it's fine.
Time zones suck.
It's hard. Life is hard. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
See you next time.
you so much for listening to Animation Kimmunication on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider. We are really hoping this show makes a difference in how people view animation and media, as well as giving and providing advice for people all over the world who like or want to join the animation or media industry. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and rate those 5 stars, as well as tell your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our main YouTube channel, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, and turn those notifications on. My name is Scribbler, and you have been listening to Animation Kimmunication.